Hi, I'm Andrea Tagliaferro, and I want to welcome everyone to Yacht Femme's second online forum of 2025. I am thrilled to have you all join us today's discussion on legal and economic trends affecting the yachting industry. We have an exceptional group of experts who will lead us through various topics. Today, we will explore the financial and legal factors shaping yacht purchasing and navigation, discussing the impact of global economic shifts, political changes, and evolving regulations. Topics include shipyard performance, brokerage sale trends, and projections for 2025. Here's a quick overview of today's sessions. On our first session, we have Financial Global Landscape, Shipyard State, and Brokerage Sales with Barrett Wright and Aaron Acker, moderated by Sophie Spignall. Then, Shipyards, the future of owners and projections for 2025 and the impact of the USA election results with Amelia Villiers-Stuart, Carla Belliani, and Jessica Galea, moderated by Jana Thomas. Then, Flags, Regulatory Requirements for Superyacht Pioneers and First Movers, with Alison Vassallo, Iona Hernandez, and Michelle van der Meer, moderated by Jana Thomas. And we finish with From Crisis to Code, How Modern Challenges Reshape Maritime Law, with Claudia Casalis and Laura Sherrod, moderated by Sophie Spignall. We welcome your comments and questions on whatever platform you're tuning in from, and I will do my very best to add them to our forum. Now, let's begin the forum by discussing financial global landscape, shipyard state, and brokerage sales. We'll examine how economic shifts, inflation, and supply chains issues are influencing yacht purchasing trends, shipyard operations, and brokerage strategies. Moderating the session is Sophie Spignall, the news editor at Superyacht Times. She manages the daily news desk, focusing on stories from across the yachting industry, with an emphasis on yachts over 24 meters. Sophie is dedicated to informing and engaging readers with the latest news and in-depth features from around the world.
Hi, thank you very much for that lovely introduction. And joining me today on this panel, we have two guests. The first is Barrett Wright. Barrett is a member of ISS, where she co-chairs the Education Committee, as well as the IBA and the USSA. She's the president of Hill Robinson Yacht Management, overseeing US operations and business development from the company's Fort Lauderdale and Palm Beach offices. She previously worked on a chef on large sailing yachts and also at Fontaine Design Group, designers of customized high-performance racing, cruising, sailing yachts. So thank you very much, Barrett, for joining us today. And also alongside Barrett today, we have our second guest, Aaron Acker. Aaron Acker is a partner at Maritime and Aviation law firm Moore & Co. She's the current president of the ISS and has been a board member there since 2014. She also serves on the Admiralty Law Committee of the Florida Bar and is a member of the Maritime Law Association, the Propeller Club, and the International Yacht Brokers Association. So thank you, Erin, for also joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much. Nice to see you all.
Thank you. So we've got two great guests here. So I think let's get straight into the questions. So first of all, I think we'll start discussing a little bit about how global economic influences and the influence that they have on the yachting industry. So the first question that I had for you both is, how have recent global economic shifts impacted the demand for luxury yachts?
Who would you like to go first? I'm happy to field it first. I will say that there's been in my practice an immediate impact since the beginning of the year. I believe with the election results being in the United States, having the election having occurred, or the results, one way or the other. I don't know if it's that Trump got elected or Kamala Harris didn't get elected, but whoever got elected, at least the election is, the results are in, and now there's some stability and people know what to expect. So, for example, I've had clients that have had several yachts for sale for over 2 years, and now all of a sudden I have offers on 3 of those yachts. Yeah. So it's, to me, an instant impact with, as I said, with the election having come and gone. People know what to expect. I think there's some optimism that the economy is going to improve, and at least there will be stability. So a definite immediate impact.
I agree with you, Erin, on that one. I think there is, at least we know who's going and what to sort of expect in the future. What I've seen a little bit too, like if we're looking at the charter market, to a degree, I'm finding that a little bit of the chaos that's kind of happening at the moment, a lot of these changes that are being implemented, I think have people a little bit like, kind of pressing pause just a little bit, sort of looking forward to maybe things settling down and seeing where the pieces are going to lay. We've got plenty of activity, plenty of interest, plenty of asks, about what's around, what's available, on the market, and people are definitely interested. I just think that, I think the Palm Beach show is going to be a real telltale, of people's action. Perhaps people right now are looking at purchasing. Maybe they started at Monaco or at the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show, and now proceeding through the paces. We've now got the election out of the way, and we're moving forward. So I think there are a bunch of factors that are there. But I think as we get closer to the end of Q1, I think you're going to see things start to move a little bit more as people gain that confidence.
Definitely. And I think that you mentioned a little bit, Erin, about you having buyers for yachts and in the US market. So how have these fluctuations in the global demand influenced maybe yacht pricing and the sales strategies for these yachts?
Well, I think that the pricing, obviously if things are if inventory's sitting around for a while, the prices drop. But when interest picks up, prices increase. But I think that the prices are still a little bit lower than we had seen in previous years, only because I do perceive some things had slowed down. I think that that's the used boat market. I'm not saying that for yachts over. I think once you get to a certain size, there's just it doesn't matter the election results in any country. I think that there's just super wealthy people that go along and live their lives, and there's not really an impact. If they want to buy a 50-meter plus yacht, they're going to buy the 50-meter plus yacht. They want to build a 50-meter plus yacht, they're going to build it. So I think that there's a segment of our industry that's kind of, it's not impacted by these shifts in global issues like elections and even the wars, really. But, they're apart from separating the Russia issue, but otherwise, I think that we see that doesn't really matter. But the lower range, under 50 meters, between 24 and 50 meters, I do think that these factors influence price. Whether or not there are, we're trying to bring an end to several wars around the world. That when that happens, there's more stability. Prices will increase. But I do think over the last year, I think I've seen prices in this market decrease because there has been, people are just not sure whether or not they should be buying right now. So that, and then of course the supply chain, I know that you mentioned that's a little bit. The supply chain is a separate issue, I think, in how that impacts things. But I think more broadly, the issues surrounding like geopolitics and things of that nature are the things that really impact price more.
I think, building on that just a little bit, I think, we are going back to sort of the yachting industry being a little bit more available to people now. We know a lot of the disposable wealth, particularly for the younger generations, has also picked up here. And I know there's quite a hefty, new build, book. The global order book, is increasing. As of this year, it's slightly decreased as of January, compared to previous years. But I think it is something that's more accessible. And going to Erin's point about the, 24 to even, 40 meter range, that is something that I think is an area that's becoming more dynamic. I think the design of that stuff, particularly from the new build, people are able to get those features and things like that they didn't have available previously in those smaller boats and were only available in the big boats are now, accessible. The beach club is such a huge thing right now, and that's such a major design element, particularly with a lot of the Italian builds. I think that's something that it's more, it seems more reasonable and available I think people right now, and I think that's something that's exciting. And also, you've got a greater range of, a market share of the audience. It's not just sort of the 55 and up and those. I think you're looking at, a break in from the younger generation, those app developers and things like that, which I think are having, a huge influence, also on the design and just the general experience of boats, and what they're looking to enjoy on board. So I think that's also something that's pretty, that's driving things as well. And obviously, with the new builds, now we've got more of the secondhand market, coming there. And again, to Erin's point, the 40 to 55 meter range used to be really competitive. I remember back in 21, 22, in those areas, and that seemed like it was the hot spot because it was a great place for people to bring their families, older children, a lot of room, things like that. And so it was kind of, definitely the law of supply and demand. But, now that the market's a little bit more saturated there, it's definitely going to be the boats that are, better priced that are going to, be the boats that leave, or off the block first.
Of course, and we're always seeing changes in the market. You touched a little bit on it there, between 21 and 22 with the 50-meter market booming. So could you maybe share some more examples of how economic downturns or booms have really influenced or affected the yachting market over the years?
Well, I mean, I think we all saw that, the boom. People start selling their slots, their construction slots. There's only so many shipyards, so we do have some problems in the industry with skilled workers. There's not enough people building these boats. I think we did reach a period of time where there was such a boom. We realized that what we need is to be promoting our industry in a better way to attract more younger talent and to get people interested, not just crew on board, but also people working in the trades in these facilities building the boats. And so, yes, there was a huge boom, but I think that there was a little bit of a struggle to kind of fulfill some of those, orders. We just don't have enough people. And then the shipyard capacity was completely full, right, for a while, and that's when things are good. And then you see, when things start going down a bit, like there's a war in Ukraine, there's a war with Israel and Palestine, and things start happening. The world starts changing. There's a lot of pressures and influences from all different countries coming down and focusing on these wars. I think was, things started to really, you could see an immediate impact with the Russia sanctions, right? Because there was a whole segment of the industry that was just completely, in some ways, wiped out because it was such a large part of the large yacht industry was Russian owned yachts. And so, any one of these things can really have a major impact. And we saw how that one issue with the war really devastated a sector of our industry. But also, that having been said, we have our other segments of the industry that do need more attention because we don't have enough resources to continue where we are, continuing a boom of building and refitting. And there's something that we really need to focus on as an industry. And I think we also need to focus on getting younger people interested in yachting because there's so much negativity surrounding yachts that I think the younger generations may be questioning whether or not they should buy a yacht because of the, all the climate change issues and things surrounding yachts. And so that's where I see where we really need to improve our messaging and figuring out how we attract these, because ultimately, like Barrett said, she's seeing all kinds of different type of people interested in yachting, but it comes with a question mark, I think, for a lot of these people, like, how can you green my yacht? Like, so how is it eco-friendly? And that is, like it or not, people are very, that's something we really have to address in a stronger fashion, really. Otherwise, I think that we will have problems going forward in the future with our market base, because you have young entrepreneurs, but they're very tapped into this whole green initiatives around.
Conscientious, yeah. I think a lot more than before. I think it's interesting. I think COVID was a really sort of good challenge, for the yachting industry. And I think that basically, probably from a lot of the industries, at least as experienced in the US, we managed to do okay and actually come out, a little bit better than we were beforehand. I think the privacy of the things, the isolation that the boats, were able to offer was something that, was certainly appealing, to the clients then. But, I think right now, you had people jumping on the bandwagon with, I really like this, I want to order my boat. So now you've got all those, post-COVID, immediately post-COVID deliveries, that are coming on the market. What I think is really interesting now is I think some of, the new builds, or at least the shipbuilders, definitely see that there is a market that is booming. I think there's an interest that's still there. And in an effort to kind of control costs, for better or better, control costs, which seems weird by building, on spec, they're able to kind of control, at least control the cost as it is for a particular period. So, we know for a while, there were huge lead times, on things, materials for, boat shafts and things like that. And there would be a year wait for the replacement stuff because there just wasn't enough material to go around. And I think that it's interesting that, that the shipbuilders are confident enough to sort of, continue going, building on that concept that somebody may come, but it's looking more at, it's cheaper rather than starting and stopping, and they can maintain control because there is a fixed price of what they have right now sort of locked in there. And I think that's also an interesting perspective because, to me, I would think that, the shipbuilders don't want any sort of inventory, but I think for those sort of semi-production or those series production boats, it can make sense, and be able to jump to when somebody decides that, okay, today's the day, I want to do it. And particularly as we were just talking about, for those people who are considering, and it takes quite a while to make a decision, there is something that they can jump to and buy. And also if somebody wants to sell their slip or, sell their build and purchase or in process, that's also something that's available to them. And I just think that, I think it's interesting with the shipyards too, trying to look at versatility a little bit. Now a lot of them are offering refit services and expanding the services there. And, for better or worse, that's great, but they've got to kind of make sure that they are looking after their refit clientele almost as well as they're looking after their new build clientele. And I've heard that from time to time, that's something that can be a little bit of an issue, with demands and being able to share, the labor force. As Erin had pointed to, there's not as many of the skilled workers that are out there. And I think where the industry is suffering a little bit more of, being able to look at it as a career. A lot of people like to dip into it and dip out, but don't see it as sort of a long-term commitment. And I think that's something that we do need to address, particularly here in the US.
I think you both touched a little bit on this really, but the market is constantly changing and it's never the same. So it's quite a versatile market, but what advice would you give to industry professionals on managing uncertainty, whether this is both long or short term?
To me, I would say be flexible and be willing to think outside the box. I think you got to be able to roll with the punches. I think the last 4 years has been very demonstrative of that. And I think the industry has evolved, from that, particularly from my perspective on the management side and looking after the boats. We've had to adapt, significantly. And so I think, there is that. And we also have to, adjust because the audience is different. The experience is different. And what they're looking for, it has a major impact. And, Erin and I have been on, a few conferences where there has been, a subject, and it is vitally important, I think, to keep it moving forward.
No, I mean, I think Barrett's absolutely right. The flexibility is really important. I mean, it's I work in a law firm, but I mean, we do maritime law, but it's funny because we all have to be flexible in some of the things that we do here too. Like you can't be rigid in your work because that just doesn't work. You have to be able to to try different things, to keep your mind open, to being, to adjusting to the demands of all the people that we're all serving every day. And, I can't, the law is the law, but there's other ways that you can, adjust and help clients. But I think that it's very important for people in this industry to, look at the challenges that we're all facing. And, another thing I would say is I think more people need to participate on a volunteer basis. I think that we have a lot of organization, a lot of industry organizations, and there's a lot of people that like to talk about things, and this isn't going well, or this, why don't we have more people? Well, we need also people to help with the solutions, so we have a lot of organizations in Europe and in the United States, and participating in some of these groups is a real, is something that's, I think it's necessary, and I think it's good for the industry. And it's good for your career just to be able to associate. I mean, Barrett's involved in so many organizations, as am I, and I think that really helps us get a sense of the things that people are seeing and like to change. I've been with the ISS. We've been talking about our talent pledge, for example, where it's an initiative where we try to get companies committed to helping bring in more people into the industry. That's just one initiative. We also have another initiative that we're working very hard in the technical committee to work with people that are members at the IMO to try to get a sense of, for example, there's going to be a carbon tax, right, on yachts, on engines. And the more of these kind of regulations that roll in, the more questionable, like how many people are going to be turned off by that, or are they going to be okay with that? So we just want to have a voice. So my advice is for people to get, a little bit more involved in some of your local organizations where you can make an impact and help shape the future of yachting.
Thank you both for your answers throughout this whole session. So I think it's very clear that this is such an interesting topic, and we could probably talk for a whole hour just on this topic alone. But unfortunately, that is all the time that we do have. So thank you very much, Erin, and thank you very much, Barrett. And thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thank you so much, Sophie. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all. I couldn't agree more with Sophie. We could have definitely extended this to, I think, a full hour. But I will give you everybody a 2-minute break, and we'll continue with the forum. I'm back. 2 minutes are over and we will continue with our forum. So for our second session, we are going to be talking about shipyards, the future of owners and projections of 2025, and the impact of the USA election results. We'll examine the future of shipyards, focusing on owner expectations and projections for 2025. This session will cover how the results of the elections may impact regulation, tax policies, and international agreements in the yachting industry. To moderate this session, we're joined by Jana Thomas, co-founder of Yachty Tide and Positive Waves Media. She has a background in international communication and diplomacy, as well as management, PR, and business development consultation. So let me bring her on board.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for the nice introduction, Andrea, and for the opportunity to moderate such an interesting panel today. I can see my wonderful panelists appearing. So today we are joined in this discussion with Carla Bellieni, Amelia Villiers-Stuart, and Jessica Galea. So thank you very much for joining us. I'll do quick introductions just for those who are not familiar with you. Carla Bellieni is a certified chartered accountant, editor, and specialist editor in ESG reporting. She's also a professor at the University of Genoa, and where she teaches maritime customs, tax law, and practice. And she is also a certified arbitrator for the IYAC. So welcome, Carla.
Thank you.
Amelia Villiers-Stuart is an English qualified solicitor. She joined Hill Dickinson in 2019. Her work includes advising owners on a wide range of transactional superyacht matters, with a particular focus on sale and purchase contracts, including flagging and ownership structures, superyacht finance, and superyacht construction contracts. Welcome, Amelia.
Thank you so much.
And lastly, Jessica Galea. She joined the Dingley law firm in 2009. Her work includes support to clients with yacht sale, purchase and registration, marine finance, mortgage registration, the incorporation of shipping organizations, yacht importations, and advice on various regulatory issues. She's also the secretary of the Superyacht Industry Network in Malta. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you, Jana.
Wonderful. So let's just start with you, Jessica, if I may. What changes are owners seeking in shipyards, or shipyard operations and yacht design in 2025?
So today we live in a world where the focus of yards cannot be solely on the product alone, the yacht alone, but a lot of thought goes into the process from before building and post building. So yards have a very difficult and tough job in ensuring that whatever owners' demands are would correspond to the needs of today's requirements in terms of keeping up with rules and regulations as well. So it's not a matter of being requested by an owner for a particular design and material, but the yard would need to know that even at time of assembling and building, they would be able also to easily dismantle certain parts and aspects of the yacht if ever the boat had to undergo a refit eventually or repairs, and also post construction and for the life of the duration of the yacht, and to make sure that the owner's demands would correspond with today's needs as well in terms of rules and regulations, which have become so strict and which of course have modified the way yards could cater for owners' needs and demands. But I would say that this year and in general going forward, sustainability and innovation are most important. Today, you have owners wanting to have a yacht that is considered sustainable, not only to be in line with rules and regulations, but also because they would know and are more environmentally conscious and would want to be the owners of a greener yacht. And in our work, I've also seen advising banks and owners seeking finance, that it would be more beneficial and more likely to obtain finance if you are the owner of a green yacht. So why not have a green yacht at the amount that you are opting for one? The topic of AI, I would say owners would want to have all the latest technologies on board and to make sure that every system is super efficient. So why not involve AI also into the design systems? And in terms of design, I also think that owners are looking for more open spaces and areas closer to the water. So although you can have a beautifully designed yacht inside in terms of interiors, most times owners want to enjoy, and their guests, they want to enjoy the beauty and be as close to the water as possible. So I think that yards also have the task of needing to design a lot of outdoor spaces too. So I'm seeing these changes in terms of the clients we have. We are guiding when it comes to owning and buying a yacht. Although I'm a lawyer, I do take an interest in seeing what type of yacht our clients go for when it comes to new builds. I'm very interested in that, and these are my thoughts.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Amelia, if I may ask you now, how are the new demographics influencing trends in yacht customization and innovation? I know that Sophie slightly touched on that subject in the earlier session, but if you could maybe tell us your opinion on this.
Sure. I think when we're talking about new owner demographics, we're talking about Generation X and the sort of older millennials who are coming into the market now. And actually, some of the things Jessica has just said, I think, are directly related to this point. Trends that we're seeing amongst these types of owners are a preference for experience, really, when it comes to the use of the yacht. So what Jessica mentioned about the spaces on board being outdoor spaces close to the water, I think that's one trend that we're seeing in terms of yacht customization and style. I also think what we're seeing is a trend towards sort of explorers type yachts, so more yachts that have perhaps preferences for icebreaker or particular type of usage rather than the style only being the main thing. And this is, of course, having a big impact on specifications and the design process that goes on in terms of new builds and in terms of the refit process. I think a lot of these clients are coming from, well, there is certainly a lot of new wealth being generated in the tech space, and also linking to something Jessica mentioned. I think these clients are particularly sophisticated clients. They're interested in technology and they want their yachts to reflect that. So they want systems that are fully smart, lighting, sound, climate, entertainment, and of course AI, I think, will start to feed into that soon. I think one other trend that we're seeing is connectivity. I mean, this is basically a prerequisite now for all owners, and I think with the advent of Starlink, we're now seeing high-speed internet even in the most remote locations.
Excellent. Jessica, if I may come back to you, please. What role do you see sustainability, because we touched on that subject before, playing in shaping owner expectations for future builds?
Yes, I think younger owners especially are really more focused on this topic, and they definitely want to have a yacht that reduces an impact on the environment. So sustainability is really a key point. Sometimes I also think that if, besides wanting a sustainable, being sustainable, one might also consider refitting a yacht rather than buying a new one, because you're being sustainable in the process. So rather than going for a new build, you'd go for a refit, and then you'd have, you're being super sustainable. And also, because time is so precious for everybody today, if a refit is quicker, then they'd choose that over a new build. However, I think that today, environmental impact of a yacht is so important because of all rules and regulations. And when it comes to a yacht, at the end of the day, the sea, the ocean needs to be protected, because the ocean is what a yacht owner is enjoying. It's not only about speed and being out and enjoying life on board your beautiful super yacht. You also want to protect the ocean, which you are enjoying while you are out at sea. So if you don't look after the ocean through the way you design your yacht, I don't know I don't think it's you're not living in the year 2025, because today it's all we hear about.
That's right. It's the sort of a guilt-free luxury, being able
Yes.
to enjoy your luxury assets without feeling bad about environment. Very, very well. Amelia, my next question would be perhaps a little bit controversial now, with the outcomes of the US elections and how they may affect the regulatory frameworks for yacht builders and yacht owners.
Thanks. I think the general consensus amongst the industry is that the outcome of the recent elections in America has been positive for the super yacht industry. President Trump is acknowledged to be pro-business and anti-regulation generally. So I think this creates a fairly favorable environment for our clients in general, particularly the ultra-high net worth segment of American society. I think the flip side to this is the tariffs that have been all over the news recently, and the impact of whether or not these tariffs are brought in, how much they are, which countries they affect. Ursula von der Leyen has been particularly vocal about the EU being retaliatory in respect of tariffs if they're imposed against steel, for example. And I think that this could potentially have a negative impact on the industry as a whole, with prices being pushed up and isolating the US market, actually, with US builders not bringing their yachts to the US, and products being more expensive generally for American buyers.
Mm-hmm. That was partially answering my next question, in what ways could the potential changes in tax policies influence the global yacht market?
Yeah, I think in terms of tax, there's also another aspect to this. And probably Carla has more to say about this than I do, but one thing that I thought was interesting in President Trump's last term is the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which brought in a depreciation clause. So if an owner purchased a yacht or a jet, for example, for commercial use, they could write down the value of that in the first year, which had a benefit for their tax position. I think it's highly likely that this piece of legislation expires this year. I think it's highly likely that it will be reinstated. And I suspect we may see a little bit of hesitation from some American clients, just waiting to see whether that does actually come into play before they make the decision with proceeding with such a high value asset purchase.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Now, Claudia, if I may, the next question will be for you. How should shipyards prepare for shifts in US and global economic policies post-election?
Thank you, Jana. Yes, I can confirm that the situation brought by the election of President Trump brought a significant impact on the expectation. So for the US citizens, the expectation of this cut in taxes and the uncertainty about how, when, and if finally, because it depends also on a general assessment of all the policy about taxes in the US, the possibility that this expectation will be in practice implemented in the current legislation, brought some some decisions for purchases have been made, have been stopped by the potential owners in terms of purchase of new yachts. So this is something we have to consider. And even if the information we had before the beginning of the politics under President Trump was saw a number of articles and information given in terms of a forecast about what is going to happen. Now we have no information about what in practice will happen. So if we ask ourselves, where are we now? We are waiting for news if these policies will be implemented. Besides this position, we have also considered that the new administration and some countries are planning to impose higher luxury taxes higher taxes on the use of luxury items such as yachts, and that this could also discourage new investments. So this is another reason to wait for news in this situation. Beyond taxation, we have also to consider that also the word of supply chain behind shipyards, that is provisions, are suffering the uncertainty about the materials and about the import duties expected for supply chains. So it is possible that these new policies will also make necessary and force players to modify maybe their supply chain to find new sources to build new efficiency if these policies will take place as expected, with the higher duties in customs operations, for example. And if we link this issue to the sustainability word that we covered in the previous question, we have also to consider that as research is necessary for sustainability in terms of technical solutions, new technical solutions, this uncertainty is really high for shipyards, because the decision to work on research for new technical solutions can be really challenging now.
Right. That brings me to my next question for you as well, Carla. In terms of shipyards, how can they better integrate sustainable practices while maintaining luxury and performance standards that they're used to?
Oh, yes. The shipyards have now to work to mitigate the impact of this global uncertainty in terms of policies, in terms of duties for customs operations, in terms of uncertainty. We have to remember that the shipping market is pushed to the ESG issues in terms of climate change because of the implementation in Europe of the ETS system. Nevertheless, even if it is compulsory and it leads to higher costs for ship owners, there is not now an available technology allowing to arrive to net zero emissions in terms of greenhouse gases. So the market and the research is working on new solutions, but they have not now yet a new technology available to arrive to this target, even if many yards are working on very clever solutions. We have news from Azimut Benetti, from San Lorenzo for the methanol. And so we have great solutions on market, but we are not close to net zero emission.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry to interrupt you.
We have also to think that this is not just for the pollution in terms of climate change, but also in terms of noise. Because the protection of the sea goes also through other solutions.
Right. And may I ask now, thank you very much, Carla. Amelia, what advancements in materials or propulsion systems do you foresee becoming industry standards by the 2025, by the end of the year?
I think this feeds directly into what Carla was just saying, really, in terms of new technologies. In terms of becoming industry standard, I think we already see a lot of yachts in the market that are using hybrid propulsion systems. So traditional diesel with electric batteries. That's now quite common. There are, of course, new research and development going on into methanol and other types of alternative fuels. I think the industry is still struggling with hydrogen. Storage and refueling is still problematic and isn't really a viable solution at the moment. There's some very cool technology out there, which I don't think is ready to become industry standard, but things like the Dynafin propulsion system is a new system for propulsion, which really maximizes energy saving and fuel saving. So obviously that has a direct benefit for the owner's pocket as well as for the environment. It's also a quieter solution, so good for owner comfort and good for marine life. So I think there's a lot of interesting stuff out
copying
there.
the nature. It has
Yeah,
been
exactly.
just been invented in a way to copy the shape of the whales.
Exactly.
Now, Jessica, final question. I believe I'm afraid that's all we have time for in this session. What market segments, that is charters, private ownership, do you see driving demand for super yachts in the coming years?
So I really see that there are very environmentally conscious consumers who are going for different types of yachts, and rather than a dual use, I'm saying some owners going for strictly private, and they would use, let's say, their family-owned boats, which are used for explorer purposes and exploring and ecological purposes. So exploring certain areas where they would like to really appreciate the raw environment. So in really remote areas, so I'm seeing lots of demand for boats that could actually sail in certain and navigate in certain areas. I'm also seeing a real increase in the hospitality sector. So super yachts are being designed almost as to keep up with these hotel chains, where they are actually setting up small passenger ships, I would call, or they're actually passenger vessels, where you have a super hotel chain running their hotel on water, giving the passengers a super experience while at sea. And I think there's quite a demand for that type of yacht today. So I would say the charter hospitality sectors, I'm seeing a big increase in that type of owner, going for those boats. Of course, owning a charter yacht is always beneficial to an owner because they would have some income to cover their running costs. But at the same time, the beauty of owning a yacht for yourself to be able to sail worldwide, if you have the money and can afford to be at sea as much as possible, is always everybody's dream. So I do think that there's an increase in private owners and use solely by the beneficial owner of the yacht. And there was also something that I wanted to add on to Amelia, because Amelia's comment about the actual design, because I forgot to mention before, that in addition to being sustainable and looking at ways and means of keeping up with environmental rules and regulations, in terms of materials, I am noticing also that the use of teak, for example, which is a really important material, is starting to change. So owners are looking for more eco-friendly materials on board. And also something even simple like the water, you think, and waste management systems really need a lot of thought in their design to make sure they keep up as well with requirements. So it's not only about the fuel and use of alternative fuels, but we really are seeing a lot of changes in the sectors.
Well, thank you very much for summarizing the session for us, Jessica, and to all you ladies. Thank you very much for your input. It's been brilliant, very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Sorry about that. I was saying thank you to everybody for this session. I think we're realizing that for the topics covering today, maybe 20 minutes was a little bit short, but we will continue on and make adjustments for the next forum. Thank you all again. And we're going to do that 2-minute break and continue with the following session. Hi everyone, I'm Andrea Tagliaferro, founder of Yacht Femme, and I'm thrilled to join the ambassadors for World Boating Day, representing the West Coast of the US. The West Coast has so many wonderful events and passionate people, yet we've been isolating from the global scene. I am excited to bring us together under this international umbrella of World Boating Day so we can shine a light on companies and individuals that work so hard to connect us to the ocean. Mark your calendars for May 24th, and if you would like to get involved, just reach out. You can find me on Yachting, Yacht Femme, or directly DM World Boating Day. And I just can't wait to connect. Next, we'll dive into flags, regulatory requirements for superyacht pioneers and first movers. We'll focus on evolving regulations, legal issues, and how these impact yacht ownership, financing, and registration, particularly for early movers in the industry. To guide us in this session, we welcome back Yana Thomas, co-founder of Yachty Aid and Positive Waves Media. She has a background in international communication and diplomacy, as well as management, PR, and business development consulting.
Hello again. Good afternoon, Yona, Mike. Perfect. Thank you very much. Hello, Alison, Yona, and Michelle. Wonderful. All on mic. So good afternoon, ladies. Thank you very much again for joining me in this session. Brief introduction to you all. So Yona Hernandez is the Business Development Manager for Yachts at International Registries. The company provides administrative and technical support to the Republic of Marshall Islands, Maritime and Corporate Registries. The Marshall Island Registry is one of the leading yacht registries and is known for their pragmatic and solutions-based approach. Welcome, Yona.
Thank you for having me.
The next person probably does not need introduction, but there you go. Here we have ever-smiling Alison Vassallo, who is the partner at Fenech and Fenech Advocates and head of the yachting department. She holds a doctorate of laws degree from the University of Malta and a master's in international maritime law. With 19 years of experience, she advises on yacht transactions, registration, financing, chartering, and fiscal solutions. Welcome, Alison.
Thank you, Anna.
And lastly, Michelle van der Merwe is the Superyacht account manager and Pantaenius. She manages the Superyacht team, handling insurance for superyachts and their crew. Started her insurance career in the UK working for a large private medical insurance company in claims, where she helped with designing the pilot scheme to transfer claims processing via satellite link to India. It is there where Michelle provided also on-site training for 3 weeks. It must have been very adventurous indeed.
Yeah, it was.
Welcome, and thank you very much for joining us. If I may, I'll start straight away with you, Michelle. So how are current regulations evolving to address the needs of innovative superyacht projects?
Well, I think that the main message that I would always like to say is that people need to engage with financiers, insurers, and everyone early on in the project. So as much as we want to support all the new innovation in the yachting industry, the pioneers, it's all very exciting, but at the same time we have to kind of talk about the insurance and the finances of the financial aspects of these projects quite early on, in order to basically talk about how these new innovations will impact on navigation and where they're going in the world. And then we can then talk about the insurance and how we can actually help these owners with their new projects. Often we're kind of the afterthought and told kind of a few weeks before maybe delivery, and it's not long enough to be able to discuss all these kind of things. So I think for me personally, I think that early intervention with all stakeholders in the process would be the best favourable position.
Wonderful. So in terms of specific regulatory challenges, what would you say do pioneers and early adopters face in the superyacht sector?
Well, I think there's so many new innovation coming out, and I don't think the kind of regulators can often keep up with it, to be honest. I know, for instance, if we talk about small yachts, we talk about foiling yachts, and the regulations and ISO standards around that just can't keep up with the new innovation. But in terms of regulatory situation with flag, then obviously every time flag issue a new guidance, such as like a MGN for lithium batteries, then the insurers will follow that guidance, and possibly may introduce new clauses in their wording, counteract that. But often these regulatory changes will follow a series of incidents maybe that have happened on yachts, and it's all to do with increasing the safety on yachts, which is what we all want, obviously, for the future, for the yachts to be as safe as possible, as well as innovative as possible.
Fantastic. Jonna, if I can move to you now and ask you, what strategies can early movers adopt to stay ahead of these regulatory changes? What would you say?
So I would say to stay in the know. These changes do not happen overnight. So I think it's really important to really be aware of the conversations that are being had at the regulatory bodies that bring these changes forward. Be aware of what's going on at the International Maritime Organization, or the IMO, the ILO, what's going on with the different flag states, as Michelle mentioned, and really knowing what's going on so that you're aware and that you're prepared. And then something else that Aaron Acker mentioned in the first session is to get involved, become a member of your local associations. They are the groups and the people that are representing the industry. And that's how we all make sure that we have a voice in these changes. So something that I can think back on where we did not have a voice was when MLC was implemented. Yachting was not thought of at all. We did not have a voice in that, but that's changed since then. We don't want to be blindsided by those type of changes. Well, they're good for the industry, but we at least want to be considered when these changes are being made. So just stay involved, join your association, and keep those lines of communication open with those people who have a voice for the industry.
So how do the regulatory bodies balance innovation with compliance? It's probably a rather tricky question.
Yeah, so it could seem like it's a really tough act to balance, but really what we look at and what we do first is we look at the existing regulations, and we see how we can work with those, right? So we don't try to work around them, we try to work through them. And sometimes there isn't anything there. So when there isn't something already available, we get together with class societies, for example, and we look for a solution for owners that is both reasonable, it's practical, and as Michelle mentioned, that also doesn't compromise on standard, quality, or safety. So we look at it that way to bring in owners, project to life. A somewhat recent project that I can think of that I think is a good example is, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Yacht Artifact. It's one of my favorites, but Artifact was one of these very unique vessels that was very environmentally friendly, was ahead of its time. But something that was very unique about it was that they used a high amount of glass within the project. And the glass itself was being used in places in the superstructure that had not been used before. So instead of going around the regulations, my colleagues in the yacht technical department, along with, I believe it was Lloyd's Register, actually looked at the glass itself and did an extraordinary amount of testing on that glass so that it would meet the full regulations. And they found a reasonable and practical solution to bring this owner's dream yacht to life without compromising on safety or quality.
Fantastic. Michelle, would you have anything to add to this particular question?
No, I mean, I think in terms of when you're talking about the yacht with the amount of glass on that particular one, Artifact, I think just again involving us quite early on, so that if we did have any questions about the superstructure or any of the interior that were maybe more bespoke, then we've got time to talk with our own risk assessors and then work with the owner on that. Again, the issue is always being advised at the last minute, and then there's maybe some misunderstanding about the project and what the owner is trying to achieve, and that can delay things. So early intervention with all parties, definitely.
I agree. You would be surprised sometimes we're the last to find out. So I can totally relate to that, Michelle, and I totally agree with you. The earlier you can get in contact with insurance, flag
brings
state.
us to the good old collaboration is the key, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah.
Very well. Thank you. Let's move from insurance to Alison to tell us what are the most common legal issues encountered by superyacht owners, and how can they be mitigated?
It's rather a big question because, of course, in our practice, we come across many different scenarios. The good news is that in our experience, when it comes to actually purchasing the vessel, now there are a multitude of advisors who offer great service in all the jurisdictions which are known to be prominent in sale and purchase of yachts. So once the contracts are watertight, once the MOA is watertight, usually a lot of negotiations and discussions and amendments take place before the actual sale. So yes, some disputes do arise, but not as many as one would think. I think the legal issues come into the picture later, when it comes then to using the vessel, operating the vessel, etc. And again, of course, one needs to make a distinction between private yachts and commercial yachts. Definitely, and it always comes up in the conversation, even though it's left out of the title. But the main point is tax, right? So that when it comes to purchasing a vessel, using a vessel in a particular region, operating a vessel commercially, although rules within Europe tend to give the impression that they are harmonized, as I always say, they're not, and in some cases more so than others. And it can make operating a vessel, especially for owners coming outside of Europe, quite complex and quite, disheartening sometimes. And that is where, of course, it's important to know where to get the right advice. Because there's no way around making sure that all your ducks are in a row as early on as possible, even before purchasing the vessel, having a clear picture of what the rules are. Since boats move, at the moment I'm at the Dubai show, we were just talking about this morning, you're seeing a lot of non-Europeans coming into Europe for tax residency, which sort of shifts the landscape as well from the traditional offshore structures onto more European-based models. Again, it's important to make sure with the owners, advisors, in-house counsel, family offices, lawyers based in their country of residence, which is a big feature in the general, wealth situation of the owner, to really have proper discussions as early on as possible to make sure all aspects are covered. Then when it comes to disputes, of course, crew dismissal comes in, and here I'm going to jump right back into Michelle's realm, and I couldn't agree more with, we have scenarios where we represent both the owners and also the crew. It's so important to, be in touch with your insurance, your P&I clubs, in the, God forbidden scenarios where there's injury on board, which happens quite often. The importance of taking statements immediately, getting all your facts down on paper, on record, gathering evidence, starting a discussion with your insurance as soon as possible, save so much costs and headaches along the way. That is, of course, from the litigation front. And I think that's it. That's as far as I could get with jotting down a few points. But I think that the most important thing is clarity, and not leaving things until the end. Another trend, rather than legal issue, the trend is of switching from commercial to private use. And that, again, has a number of licensing requirements. Again, in different jurisdictions, there might be different requirements, and also tax implications. So getting informed and getting the advice in place as soon as possible saves a lot of, misconceptions or issues further down the line.
Yeah, I think I would just probably add one other thing of kind of a regulatory risk is the KYC and AML kind of regulations in each country. You could consider that as a risk if you're early on in the project and you don't have all the information. So again, early communication with all the KYC requirements needed for that particular jurisdiction and that particular insurer or lawyer, that could be seen as a risk if you don't actually have all that information.
Great.
And that's the thing, Michelle. I mean, things become risks when you're not informed ahead, right? When you haven't
Correct,
done
yeah.
the homework, or your team hasn't done the homework. So
Mm.
as long as you're informed, you've done. I mean, a lot of deals go through seamlessly. Many owners are operating without any issues. If there are questions, they're answered. If there's changing circumstances, you address them. You advise within the client's needs at that given point. So that's what we're there for. But for it to become an issue, usually it's because there wasn't any forethought or pre-planning or clear communication on what the owner's expectations are at the get-go.
Yeah, exactly.
You have already obviously touched on the legal frameworks and to what extent that they differ across multiple different jurisdictions. So is there anything else you'd like to mention?
Well, yes, I mean, yachts move, so it's inevitable. I mean, I always say it's so important to. I mean, people tend to in our circles, you tend to call up a lawyer and expect that lawyer to advise you on all the jurisdictions under the sun, all the continents under the sun sometimes. And we are incredibly fortunate because even the ladies on this session hail from the main jurisdictions. They were always a phone call away, super efficient, and we can really clarify things and just, then point clients in the right direction as and when needed. But I always like to say it's so important to get advice in your jurisdiction of residence when it comes to purchasing the boat, and also then in the jurisdictions where you intend to use the vessel when it comes to operating the vessel. Because there's no one size fits all. It becomes very messy when the client hears different things from different advisors, from the captain, from the captain's friend. So it can get quite messy, and it's so easy to get misinformation, or sometimes clients like to want to think something can be done, and it's what they wish, so they try and make it happen. And it's important to go to the source really of the information you need.
I agree with Alison. And sometimes you mentioned getting advice from the captain or maybe from a fellow owner. Sometimes
Yes.
apples and oranges, because we're talking about an over 500 gross ton boat and the other person's is under, and those rules and regulations really just do differ based on simple things just as that, goes tonnage, whether they're chartering and they're not chartering, where they're chartering, and those type of things. So yeah, you get a lot of that back and forth, or what people think is misinformation, but it's just maybe something that doesn't apply to them because the regulations apply differently based on the size of the yacht and how it's being used and where it's being used. So it's really important to reach out. I mean, Alison, you would love this. I tell clients all the time, I can't give you legal advice.
Yeah.
You should be calling your maritime lawyer. We have people ask us all the time about, tax implications and things like that in all kinds of different jurisdictions. And we're, as a regulatory body, we're not the people you should be coming to for that. You should be asking either the local authorities and or your maritime lawyer or your fiscal agent about those things. Make sure you're covering all the bases. Don't just guess or use somebody else's experience.
Yes, luckily our network works very well for that, and it's a small industry and we are well interconnected. We always know who to call. Now, yes,
if I may, because I take notes down and then I just go on a tangent, because Yana is making me think as well. There is a preconception we can burst here now, and I think that's the reason the owners or the captains would go to the flag, because I see it in Malta. The idea that the flag of the vessel will regulate its tax. So because the vessel is registered in Malta, then for sure, the tax implications are in Malta. If the vessel is in the Marshall Islands, then, you need to advise me on the tax. They can sometimes, run in parallel in certain situations, but they have to be treated differently, to the same extent that sometimes yachts are subject to Maltese tax and they are flagged somewhere else. So I think that's a bubble I would love to burst immediately, because it can avoid many unnecessary phone calls in the registry.
Yes, I have a few questions coming in as well.
Yes,
But
we'll
I
see.
think we have to move on. If I can go back to Michelle and would like to ask you, how might upcoming regulatory changes influence yacht insurance options?
Well, I mean, a lot of the as I said before, a lot of the regulatory changes will come in the form of guidance from FLAG, and then we would then possibly adopt different wordings in our policy. Or, I mean, the backstay for all insurance is obviously the yacht has to be compliant with FLAG and class anyway. So if there are any new regulatory guidances that have been issued following a series of incidents, for instance, lithium battery fire or something, there was the MGN 681, I think it was, guidance issued, and therefore the yachts must follow that guidance following those incidents. So therefore the insurance policy follows that. So that's how it kind of impacts it. I'm not aware of any new regulatory guidances imminently coming out, but maybe Iona can say if there are any imminent ones coming out.
But the environmental regulations.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, the environmental regulations, if you're in terms of insurance, could impact the actual insurer themselves if they've got their own ESG guidelines in place, where they might find that some yachts have huge engines and that doesn't follow what their ESG guidelines are following. We've seen that with one insurer in Europe that actually has pulled out of insuring. I don't know what type yacht it was, but it had very big engines, and it just didn't fall within their kind of framework for their environmental aspects of their ESG guidelines. So that could be an impact. So the insurer is actually looking at the actual yacht and what environmental innovation it's got on it and whether they want to insure it or not.
So I take it this would be one of your key considerations.
Yeah, I'm definitely going forward. All big insurance companies have built-in ESG in their framework now. So they are looking at what assets they're insuring and what impact that will have in the future for obviously this environmental legislation coming in as well. So
fantastic. I'm not sure, Andrea, if we have time for the last question for Iona from the final section.
If
or not?
you can make it like super short,
Okay.
because we
Iona.
are running Claudia.
How do flag states differ in their regulatory requirements? So, and
man, that's
just good owners consider when choosing a flag. There you go. Last question.
Definitely not a short answer, but I will try my best. I think Alison kind of touched on this a little bit already. The major flag states, we all have to adhere to all the major international conventions and regulations and things like that. But then through our own national laws, we do differ in maybe how we operate vessels, the definition of a certain vessel type and things of that nature. But really what I think, separates us from each other, or what makes us unique, is having unique programs like, for example, a private yacht limited charter program or the yacht engaged in trade program in Europe for owners that want to be able to use their yacht privately and then be able to charter to offset their costs. And there might be tax implications. I mean, there's really just a myriad of reasons, as Alison had kind of already mentioned before, as to why an owner would choose one flag over the other. And those are just some of the things on the surface. And I mean, I could go on for like half an hour, so I'm just gonna stop.
And I can vouch for that because there are complete forums just about this specific question that I had the privilege to attend in Palm Beach last year. But I'm going to say thank you, everyone, for this session. We do have to keep moving to the next forum, but this was so interesting, and I value everybody's time. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Bye.
Thank you for your insights. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So welcome back to our last session. We're going to be covering from crisis to code, how modern challenges reshape maritime law. In this session, we'll explore how contemporary social, political, environmental changes, as well as maritime disasters, shape the evolution of yacht laws and maritime regulations. Drawing on historical precedents, the forum will examine ongoing global occurrences and their potential influence in the yachting industry, including manufacturing practices, safety standards, and international compliance measures. To moderate this session, we welcome back Sophie Spicknell. And for those of you joining us just now, she is the news editor for Superyacht Times and manages the daily news desk, focusing on stories from across the yachting industry, with an emphasis on yachts over 24 meters. She's dedicated to informing and engaging readers with the latest news and in-depth features from around the world.
Hi, thank you for that introduction, and thank you for welcoming me back to this final session of the day. So joining me alongside on this session, we have Laura Sherrod. Laura Sherrod is the Director of Yacht Division at New Coast Insurance Services. She's a fifth-generation Floridian with deep yachting roots. Raised in Miami, she insures yachts from 2 million plus, leveraging experience as both crew and captain. She excels in client relations, industry mentorship, and navigating yacht insurance complexities. So thank you for joining us, Laura.
Thank you, Sophie. Lovely to be here.
Thank you. And alongside her today, we have Claudia Casalis. She is the partner at Robert Allen Law, where she works across the corporate, yacht law, and lending and real estate departments. Her practice is focused on a range of legal areas, including super yacht transactions, secured maritime finance, lending and finance, real estate law, international law, corporate law, and intellectual property law. So thank you very much, both of you.
Thank you, Sophie.
So I think we'll get straight into things and start with a little bit maybe of history to start this whole conversation off. So looking at maritime laws and how maritime laws have evolved over the years. So how did the legal and regulatory framework evolve after past maritime incidents? This might be things like maybe the Titanic, and which of these laws are still relevant today?
Was that to me, Sophie? Sorry.
It is, yes, sorry.
Still getting over a cold, so forgive me. So unfortunately, pretty much I think everyone will tell you that old code has resulted primarily from a crisis. So the Bible that we consider for safety regulations or SOLAS, the safety of life at sea, came after the Titanic. The first iteration of that came up in 1914, and we have the latest iteration with us since 74, 78. So that's still very relevant. The MARPOL, which deals with pollution prevention, came after Torrey Canyon oil spill in 1987, I believe. And the ISM code, which deals with safety protection and system protection, came after the Herald of Free Enterprise. All of them basically reinforced the need for international regulation, and the IMO took that on.
Thank you. And we mentioned a little bit there about things like the Titanic influencing these changes and these regulations as well. You touched on some that are still in play today. So how do these affect the way that laws are created? So obviously an incident happens and then this leads towards a law being created or a code being created. Is that correct?
Yes. So basically an incident happened. The international community, as far as right after the Titanic, the U.S. had committees and investigations about what happened, what went wrong, what should have taken place. And that gets turned into regulations. So for example, the safety of life at sea, they originally made sure that you needed to have enough life rafts on board. They needed to have specific safety gear for everyone, that you had enough procedures for what happened in the case of an emergency. And all of those are still modified after other incidents, and we find out that we still need some other items that gets modified into the regulations, and that's what we have today.
And moving a little bit forward into sort of today's issues and some of the things that we're facing as of today. So how have recent geopolitical conflicts such as the Myanmar civil war impacted the sourcing of maybe materials such as blood teak in yacht manufacturing?
So especially in the US, we're having a little bit of a crisis right now. So in Europe, the European Union had sanctions on blood teak for the last 3 or 4 years. And unfortunately, there's still illegal logging, and blood teak has made its way to Europe and the US. There's manufacturers that have recently been sanctioned for the use, Sunseeker, Ocean Co. And so it's very prevalent. But the US, as of December, as recent as December, basically made, so we've always had the Lacey Act for a couple of years, well, decades really, which basically importers have to notify customs of the genus and where they're bringing fish, wildlife, and wood, essentially. But for whatever reason, it hadn't caught up to yachts. So as of December, yacht importers need to basically tell customs where every piece of wood that's used in the yacht comes from. And that's been very difficult for yacht owners, especially for used vessels.
And Laura, moving over to you a little bit as well. So how can the yachting industry balance innovation with compliance, particularly when introducing high-risk technologies?
So, Sophie, you mentioned something that insurers hate to hear, which is high risk.
Yeah.
So, the just going back to what we've been talking about in this whole day, which is terrific, which is sustainability. And, and also Erin mentioned being flexible, able to adjust. Insurers try very hard to stay with the times. But one thing they really love is longevity. They like a vessel that lasts. They don't want to hear from their clients. No offense, but they want good boats that stay in service for a long time. And so high risk is difficult, let's just say. And Michelle mentioned, early introduction, early conversations with insurers is very important. Some of the propulsion systems that are being discussed are very innovative, but they're very difficult to insure. And so, the high risk of lithium ion is just being figured out. It takes a long time for insurers to figure things out. And so sometimes it takes a while for us to catch up. But when something bad happens, like Claudia mentions, then everybody steps in and goes, okay, we got to do something about this. So we tend to be reactionary. Underwriters tend to be reactionary. We, the insurance broker or agent, we try and be forefront, but again, we got to have the knowledge. So being there and being of assistance to our clients and trying to find solutions means sometimes we have to get very creative. But the good thing about insurance policies, especially with marine insurance policies, is they're bespoke. They're customized. And so there's a lot of times where we can create things that are new to the market in language that we'll use just for that one boat. So it's very, we can try very hard with various underwriters to try and create the proper solution, so that these clients can do what they're trying to do. But so yeah, let's keep high risk out of the equation.
I think you touched on it a little bit there, and maybe also you did as well, Claudia, in your previous answers. But what role do these manufacturers, designers, and regulatory bodies play in ensuring safety and accountability for technological advancements?
Laura, you want to go first?
Well, Claudia, why don't we talk about a little bit about the reaction insurers have had to, say, shipyards trying to push back on their liability, because that's a huge issue. I think we kind of try and avoid is the fact that, a boatyard or a repairer or something is doing a job, but they don't want to take responsibility for it. They want the insurer of the vessel sometimes to take the responsibility. And to me, that's not fair. People should have responsibility for what they, insurers understand, okay, we're taking on the risk of our client, but why are we taking on the risk of the entire shipyard? So that becomes a real issue with our carriers. And there's a bit of a clash there that we have to work through contractually. And Claudia, I'm sure you deal with this all the time, is, working through that contract can be very, very concerning, because it doesn't matter until something bad happens, and then we're all, trying to scramble around and fix it. So, I don't know if that quite answers the conversation as far as taking responsibility, but that's my take.
To build on what Laura was saying, manufacturers, although they would not like, I don't mean to bash on them, but they are really in the best position to make sure that that they're bringing the best technology to the new builds or to the refits. They're the ones that deal with the suppliers. Certainly the owners do not. So they are really in the best position to make sure that we have the best technology out there, and sustainability-wise, design-wise, all of them. For example, for a couple of years, they were very reluctant to use IMO Tier 3 engines to have the SCR systems on board. And it wasn't until the IMO basically said, we're not going to delay this anymore, that they really said, well, we're going to have to figure out how to make this into our yachts. And unfortunately, I see that it really translates to a lot of technology and new developments.
Yeah, I think you both sort of mentioned this as well, but it seems to be that nothing really happens until something bad happens. And that's when people sort of start to take notice of these things. So why is it that maritime disasters, we've had quite a few in recent years with Ocean Gate, Titan tragedy, and even Bayesian more recently as well. Why is it that these sort of events capture the public interest and conspiracy theories are created long after the event has even happened?
Yeah, it's sad, isn't it? Because it's high valued, high profile people in a beautiful surrounding, and something tragic happens. So by the visuals of it alone, it can be very attractive to media. But Sophie, your organization does great information about some of the things that we've seen recently. And we've had a lot of things happen. We've had the fires, we've had, Bayesian, loon tender loss, Athena, ice, love bug, ethos, Tamarita. We had a big year on claims just in 2024. And so, when insurers look at should we continue to insure these toys? Yes, they actually do look at the facts of the visuals as well. It's no good visual when a yacht goes to literally the booby trap and there's a fire, which just happened in January. I'm sorry. Yeah. It was just like, oh gosh, really? We love our industry. We want to protect it, and so we want to make sure that insurers are providing good coverage for our good clients. But yeah, so sometimes I call it the fog of war, because it's really not as bad as it looks, and it is kind of generated information that's not real, but it does. It does get the conspiracy theorists going. So
we're fixated with drama.
Yes, definitely.
Humans love drama. we're still. I think they're still talking about how the Titanic occurred because JP Morgan Chase wanted to kill one of the other millionaires.
Wow.
Yeah, it just lends itself when you have high profile individuals in an accident, just lends itself to conspiracy theories.
But just talking about protection, because I sounded very negative there. But what protection wise, well, I want to say, you know, one thing is class and flag and insurance. You know, we work together to try and make the best solutions for the clients. And so it's wonderful when we know we've got a well-classed boat with a good flag, and they're kind of doing the gatekeeping that the insurance doesn't have to do. And we know we've got a great crew on board, and we know we've got a great owner who really wants to, you know, take good care of the boat. All of those factors come into it. And so, you know, that's a huge part of it. I had a conversation with a lot of different captains about this conversation of which would you rather have, a really good boat with an okay crew or a really great crew on an okay boat? And they said, really great crew. So we need to protect our quality of our crew. It's very important, you know, and they will make the boat good. So
100%. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think another question that I get asked quite a bit as well is, are there actually more incidents happening, or are we just more aware of them now? Are things just being reported a lot more? You said last year was quite a busy year. Are we seeing an increase in cases or not?
We have more boats. Mm-hmm. So percentage wise, we're going to have more events.
Yeah.
But there were a few that were kind of landmark events.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, I mean, as the fleet continues to grow, we're going to have more events.
Yeah, and not bad percentage wise. Also, social media makes us actually know what happens in Europe, whereas decades ago we wouldn't have known. I would be interested for Laura to basically, if she can confirm. I know we've had more claims because we have more boats, but on a yearly basis, would you say it's a lot more than 10 years ago?
Well, I mean, I insured the fleets down in the Caribbean and Hurricane Irma, so that was about as bad as it gets. Okay. It's way better than that. Okay. Yeah. Windstorm is still the number one cause of loss when it comes to yachts. And that's really a driving factor in insurance rates is wind exposed. But other than that, I mean, when you get into the 50 meters and above, these safety things like class and flag and you know, quality has made a difference dramatically. And so I think that's showing why insurers are very interested in the larger yachts, because over 50 meters has had quite a good record.
Yeah, they're better built yachts.
Better built, yes.
So
yeah.
Over 500 gross tons, they have to meet SOLAS and MARPOL and other codes that they're supposed to be, and most of them are going to be classed as well. So they're meeting better standards.
Right. Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah, it's not just the laws that are changing, but the yacht standards are changing as well. And I guess they kind of have to keep up with the changing and evolving market all the time.
Yes, unfortunately, I think Laura was the one that said it. We're a very reactionary industry, but I hope that we're slowly changing.
Well, I think that's pretty much all the time that we have today. We've had quite busy sessions. And again, I feel like I could ask you a lot more questions, but if I start, we're going to get locked into a question that'll take us another sort of 5-10 minutes. But I just want to say thank you to you both for joining me today. And also thank you to all of the guests that we've had across today. It's been quite a busy conversation that I think we can all agree wasn't quite long enough for all of us.
Yeah, thank you, Sophie. Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you all. And yeah, Sophie, I completely agree with you. Maybe we brainstorm how do we do this next time. Make sure we don't cut anybody off. But thank you all, super insightful. I'm very honored that you are here speaking to us and covering so much in so little time. So thank you again. So we have come to the end of the forum. Thank you, everyone that tuned in, that stayed all the way into the end. I want to say a huge thank you to our esteemed speakers and moderators. You did a fabulous job. You allowed us to learn so much valuable insights. And thank you again for joining our forum. I hope this forum discussion on the key financial and legal issues impacting the yachting industry provided you some valuable insights and some clarity on the economic landscape, political shifts, and regulations that influence yacht purchasing, navigation, and other core aspects of this space. So today, as you've seen, we didn't really highlight other sponsors, but we did highlight World Boating Day that's coming up in May. Please, if sign up, reach out to me and to the other ambassadors that you can find on Instagram and on the website. But today I want to take a moment to highlight the wonderful women that have joined the Yacht Femme memberships. We launched only a week ago, and thanks to their support and, of course, our sponsors, we can continue our mission to empower women and create events like this one, providing a platform for the amazing women working and to improve the yachting industry and the maritime industry as well. So I'm going to give a quick shout out, not so quick because we actually have a lot of members that join. So Abigail Eaton Richards, Alexandra Martinez Hernandez, Antonella Scarfiello, Anissa Mendioni, Barrett Wright, Carolyn Roberts, Clarissa Androsoni, and I'm going to stop there for a moment to say special thank you because she was the first one to join the membership. Dorina Hassani, Blaise Mulane, Gonka Aslan, Jill Bobrow, Joanna Mucarobio, Lauren Cotton, Liz Schmidt, Louise Gibson, Lucrecia Vogonia, Maxine Nino, Miriam Fossati, Samantha Satsiule, Samprite Bhattacharya, Silvia Iraji, Sydney McIntosh, Vanya Pedisi, and Vienna Eleuteri. Thank you. And if you would like to follow the speakers, please find their links on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, anywhere that this is going to be posted as a recording. I will have the links there for you so you can learn, follow them, and maybe connect and get them on your next event. If you missed the sessions, do not worry. Reposts will be available, hopefully by today, if I can manage that, on YouTube. Link will be sent out to all the registrants. And if not, you can go to the Yacht Femme website and find the link there. Our next forum is in only 1 month in March. We'll be celebrating International Women's Day with a wonderful forum discussing leadership, entrepreneurship, management, and branding. Thank you, and we look forward to seeing you on our next event as we continue to empower women in the yachting industry. Bye.